49ers made a waiver claim. Garret Wallow, linebacker out of TCU, was D. Winter's college teammate. San Francisco claims him after Denver waived him. So Wallow takes the spot of Ben Barch on the 53-man roster. For Barch, injured reserve, probably done for the season. We've got our final sunset here in Cabo. But Barch, foot sprain, it might be a Liz Frank foot sprain situation, which is tremendously unfortunate for the 49ers because he had been their best guard this year. He just can't stay healthy. So now they've got Garret Wallow, who has familiarity with 49ers assistant special teams coach Colt Anderson. They were both on the Tennessee Titans last year, but Wallow suffered a pectoral injury in August, so he didn't play under Colt Anderson. Still, he's played 669 career special team snaps. You put on the tape for Garret Wallow, and the guy can certainly hit. He's not afraid to hit. He was a neck roll guy back at TCU when he was D. Winter's college teammate. And neck roll guys, I don't think that he's carried the neck roll with him to the NFL, but neck roll guys typically have the reputation of hard hitters. So that's who Garret Wallow is. I'm sure the 49ers and Colt Anderson like the mentality, like what he brings on tape for special teams. You know, with all the injuries that the 49ers have had at linebacker, there can be a negative downstream effect to special teams. So for example, Curtis Robinson, one of the 49ers most important, best special teams players, because he's playing the Mike linebacker right now, he's taken off of a lot of special teams duties. The 49ers consistently looking for players who can fill in those positions because the downstream effects of injuries to offense or defense can actually hurt that third phase of the game the most. And you know what? The 49ers have had the NFL's best special teams unit ever since week one. Week one was against Seattle. That's when Jake Moody missed the 2 kicks and wasn't all too pretty for the 49ers. Since then, they have just been on fire when it comes to special teams. Coverage, good. Returns, awesome for the 49ers. And you know what? The blocking on returns, that also takes a big level of physicality and big level of fearlessness. And more than anything, it requires cohesion. So that's why special teams coaches typically like to get their guys into the building. So if Colt Anderson knows Garret Wallow, Colt Anderson's going to want Garret Wallow to be on this football team and help the 49ers in that phase of the game. Eric Kendricks is also now on the team, but I don't expect Eric to be much of a special teams guy. He's on the practice squad, but he's a former All-Pro. The 49ers brought him in last week. He's been on a crash course of the 49ers playbook over the course of the past few days. He has a chance to become the Clelin Ferrell of the linebacking unit. And by that, I mean somebody signed to the practice squad at a very low cost who can evolve into a regular for the 49ers to help them pick up some of this injury slack. Kendricks was close to joining the 49ers last year. He actually committed to joining the 49ers in 2024, but before he signed the contract, he decided to go to the Cowboys. Mike Zimmer, who had been his defensive coordinator with the Minnesota Vikings back when he was an All-Pro in 2019 and the surrounding years, was the coordinator of the Cowboys. So he decided to go play under Zimmer in 2024. But he said today in the locker room, Kendricks said that the 49ers culture really drew him even in 2024 before he decided to go to the Cowboys instead, just to be with his former coach and coordinator. Obviously, with the Mike Zimmer option off the table here in 2025, Eric Kendricks decided to indeed sign with the team whose culture called him. And he said that he was watching San Francisco from afar this year because he had a chance to watch the most football he's ever gotten to watch. And he said that it was just amazing to him that the 49ers were consistently winning football games, despite the fact that they had lost so many players due to injuries. And he's a 33-year-old vet. He's been in the league for, 10, 11 years. He said that that's something special. When a team can overcome what the 49ers have overcome, they are doing something right. And lo and behold, Eric Kendricks entered the building last week. He even traveled with the 49ers to Cleveland before their bye week. And he said, now I understand and I know for sure why this team has seen so much success. And it's because of the people in this building, the types of players they have gotten. So it's fascinating stuff, really, for the 49ers at linebacker in the post-Fred Warner era. And, you know, maybe we could start saying this is the pre-Fred Warner era. Fred has been dipping into water a lot colder than this. I'm in Cabo right now, but he's been dipping into cold water in Lake Tahoe over the course of the bye week. And I know from experience, because I swim in the San Francisco Bay without a wetsuit, that cold water has healing properties. And I think that Fred has tapped into some of that. And I think that Fred is gunning for a return, whether it be late in the playoffs or for the Super Bowl. If the 49ers can make it that far, it would not shock me if Fred Warner was able to get back out on the football field. But at this very moment, the 49ers cannot rely on that. At this very moment, the 49ers have to try to make it to the finish line with some true challenges at that linebacker position. Obviously, you've got D. Winters, and he's coming off of one of his best games of the season, which was good to see for the 49ers. Now they're going to have more depth with Garret Wallow on that 53-man roster, the former teammate of D. Winters at college. They do have Curtis Robinson, but I think that's the spot with the Mike linebacker position where Eric Kendricks might be able to truly fill in for the 49ers and bridge a lot of the productivity gap that they are currently facing without Fred Warner and obviously without Tatum Bethune, who has a high ankle sprain. A lot of people always ask me about Nick Martin, the rookie. Nick is not going to be the Mike linebacker, at least this year. I think Nick is going to be more of a weak side guy for the 49ers, but even that's a ton of responsibility. You don't leave the field much as the weak side linebacker. So they're looking at him as a strong side linebacker. He's getting sparing action for the 49ers. He did suffer a concussion against Cleveland. So we're going to have a injury update on Nick Martin a little bit later this week. But I think for the time being, Nick Martin, that is a bonus piece for San Francisco, somebody whom the 49ers are not going to be counting on big time over the course of this 2025 season. He's more of a developmental prospect for the 49ers. Whereas, I mean, he's going to play plenty of special teams as soon as he's out of that concussion protocol. But somebody like Garret Wallow, who has already played a couple seasons at linebacker, even though it hadn't been a whole lot of action for him when he first entered the league at Houston, he's somebody that has probably already established a performance floor at the NFL level as a 26-year-old player, higher than Nick Martin's, and that gives the 49ers a little bit more safety if they have to plug him in. They don't want to have too much boom, too much bust. The bust is the problem at that linebacker spot. You can't let the defense fall off a cliff just because you want to play a rookie. So that's what this claiming of Garret Wallow does for San Francisco. Anyway, this is probably our second to last video from Cabo. You guys saw some of the horses behind me. The shadows are harsh right now. We can also end on the sunset. Look at that. Sun disappearing behind the mountains. There's a look at the Pacific Ocean. We will talk to everybody very soon.